I'd been single for about 8 months and decided to try online dating again. I matched with this guy named Trevor on one of the apps. Photos, good conversation, and seemed normal. We texted for about 2 weeks before he asked me out to dinner. He picked a nice restaurant, nothing too fancy, but not too casual either. The kind of place that shows effort. He even offered to pick me up, but I drove myself because, well, stranger danger and all that. Trevor was already there when I arrived, and he looked exactly like his photos, which was honestly a relief. Good looking guy, well dressed, stood up when I approached the table. Real gentleman vibes. The conversation was good too. We talked about work, travel, and shared interests. I was actually thinking this might be the start of something good. About halfway through dinner, he excused himself to use the bathroom. While he was gone, our server came over and politely asked if I was okay. "I'm sorry?" I said, confused. "The gentleman you're with," she said. "He was here last week with another woman. Same table, same order for her. Even told some of the same stories I overheard tonight." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you sure it was him?" "Positive. And the week before that, a different woman. Exact same scenario. I've been working here for 3 years. You start to notice the patterns." When Trevor came back, I tried to act normal, but I kept thinking about what the server had told me. I started paying closer attention to his stories. He told me about this funny thing that happened to him in Starbucks this morning. But he told me that exact same story, word for word, in our text conversation 3 days ago. Then he started asking really specific questions. What time did I usually get home from work? Did I live alone? What was my address again? He wanted to make sure he could find it if he walked me to my car later, which was weird. So I made an excuse about feeling sick and said I needed to leave. Trevor seemed disappointed that he offered to drive me home since I wasn't feeling well. I insisted I was fine to drive myself. "At least let me walk you to your car," he said. "Make sure you get there safely." The parking garage was mostly empty by then, and something about his insistence made me uncomfortable. I told him I was parked right outside, and I would be fine. But he followed me anyway. I had parked in the garage, not outside, but I wasn't about to correct myself. Instead, I walked to the street and pretended to look for my car. Trevor stayed right beside me, scanning the area. "I don't see your car," he said. "Oh, must be further down." I started walking away from the restaurant. That's when Trevor grabbed my arm. Not aggressively, but firmly. "Ashley, your car isn't down there. I saw you park in the garage." My blood ran cold. He'd been watching me arrive. I pulled my arm free and said I just remembered I'd taken an Uber. "No, you didn't," he said. His voice had completely changed. "You drove here in a blue Honda Civic. License plate starts with 7G4. You parked in level 2, space 23. I started backing away from him. "How did you know that?" Trevor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I make it my business to know things about the woman I date. I turned and ran. Let's say ran back towards the restaurant, pulled out my phone, and called 911. By the time the police arrived, Trevor was gone. The detective who took my statement said they'd had 3 other reports about a man matching Trevor's description in the past month, although with different names and in different apps, but the same MO. He'd followed women home from dates, show up at their workplaces, even tried to get into one woman's apartment building by telling the doorman he was her boyfriend. They never caught him, and I deleted all my dating apps after that, and didn't go on another date for over a year. But here's the really disturbing part. 2 months later, my friend Jessica showed me a guy she'd matched with. Different name, different photos, but I recognized him immediately. It was Trevor. This next story comes from Brad, a 29-year-old teacher from Florida. I matched with this woman named Monica on the dating app. She was gorgeous, like way out of my league, but her profile seemed down to earth. Said she was a nurse, loved hiking, and looking for something serious. We had it off right away. We decided to meet on coffee on a Saturday afternoon. She suggested this little cafe in a part of town I didn't really know, but I figured why not. Monica was even more beautiful in person. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous, but she was sweet and engaging, and asked all the right questions about my job and interest. About an hour into our date, she said we should go for a walk in the nearby park. The park was pretty secluded, with lots of trees and winding paths, and with not many people around. We found a quiet bench and kept talking. That's when Monica's phone started buzzing constantly. "Sorry," she said, glancing at the screen. "It's my ex. He's been harassing me since we broke up." I told her that sounded awful, and I asked if she wanted to go somewhere more public, but she said she was fine. A few minutes later, her phone rang. "I should probably take this. Maybe if I talk to him, he'll leave me alone." She answered the phone and walked a few feet away. I couldn't hear everything, but the conversation sounded heated. I'd hear things like, "I told you it's over, and stop calling me." When she came back, she seemed upset. "He's threatening to come to my apartment," she said. "I'm scared to go home." Being the nice guy I am, I offered to drive her home and make sure she got inside safely. Maybe even stick around for a while if she felt unsafe. "You would do that?" she asked, and seemed so relieved. That would mean so much to me. We drove over to her apartment complex. It was a nice place in a gated community. It seemed safe enough. Monica lived on the 3rd floor, and I walked her up to make sure there was no sign of her ex lurking around. "Would you mind coming inside for just a minute? I want to make sure he's not hiding in there or something." I checked their apartment. Small, 1 bedroom, very neat, with nothing seeming out of place. I was about to leave when Monica broke down crying. "I'm so scared. What if he has a key? What if he comes back tonight?" Long story short, she convinced me to stay for a couple hours until she felt better. We ordered takeout, watched Netflix, and honestly it was turning into a really nice evening. Around 10 p.m, I said I should probably head home. That's when we heard the footsteps in the hallway, outside the apartment. Monica went pale. "That's him." The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Then came a knock. "Monica, I know you're in there." It was a man's voice, angry and demanding. Monica looking more and more terrified. "Don't answer it." "Monica, I saw the killer in the parking lot. Who's that guy?" More knocking, then the sound of someone trying the door handle. Thank God it was locked. "I'm calling the police," Monica shouted, reaching for her phone. "You better not. You know what happens if you call the cops." This went on for about 20 minutes. Him yelling, threatening, and trying the door. All while Monica was crying. begging me not to leave her alone. Finally, the hallway went quiet. I waited another hour before I felt comfortable leaving. Monica made me promise to text her when I got home safe, and to call her first thing in the morning. I felt good about myself, like I'd done the right thing, helped someone in a bad situation. But when I got home and thought about the evening, some things started bothering me. Like how Monica had suggested a specific cafe in that specific neighbourhood, almost like she was leaving me somewhere isolated. And how quickly we moved from that coffee shop to a walk in the secluded park. And her ex's voice through the door, it was angry, sure, but it felt performative. The next morning I decided to drive by the apartment complex, just to make sure everything was okay. But when I got there, the building manager was putting up a for rent sign on what I thought was Monica's door. I asked him about the previous tenant. He said the unit's been empty for 3 months and they're trying to rent it, but the market's been slow. That's impossible. I was there last night with a woman named Monica, apartment 3B. He looked at me like I was crazy. Sir, I've been the manager here for 2 years. There's never been a Monica in 3B, and that unit doesn't have electricity. It hasn't for months. I thought about Monica's apartment from the night before, how neat it was, almost like a model home, how there were no personal photos anywhere, how the takeout we'd ordered had been delivered to the lobby. And I realised I actually never saw her unlock the door. She'd opened it, but I assumed it was locked. What if it wasn't? What if it was empty? I never heard from Monica again. Her dating profile disappeared. Her phone number went to voicemail. It was like she never existed. To this day, I have no idea what her plan was, or what I walked away from that night. But sometimes I wonder if I stayed longer, if I'd been more trusting, would I have made it home at all? This story comes from Lisa, a 32-year-old marketing manager from Oregon. I met Daniel through a friend of a friend at a work party. He seemed charming, well-educated, and had interesting stories about travelling for his work. When he asked me out, I said yes. He suggested dinner at an upscale restaurant across town that I'd never been to. The kind of place that requires reservations, where you dress up and feel fancy. I was impressed that he'd put thought into it. Daniel picked me up at my apartment, which I normally wouldn't allow on a first date, but since we had mutual friends, I figured it was safe enough. He drove a nice car, was well dressed, and opened doors for me. He was a very old school gentleman. The dinner was lovely. Great food, good wine, and engaging conversation. Daniel was well travelled and had fascinating stories about his work, and actually, now that I think about it, he was pretty vague about what he did. Something in acquisitions for private collectors. After dinner, he suggested we get drinks at this quiet bar he knew. It was pretty late by then, almost 11 p.m, but I was having such a great time that I agreed. The bar was in an older part of downtown, the kind of area that had been gentrified, but still had some rough edges. The place itself was nice too. Dim lighting, intimate booths, craft cocktails, all very romantic. We'd been talking for about an hour when Daniel excused himself to take a phone call. Work emergency, he said apologetically. Give me 5 minutes, please. He stepped outside, and I could see him through the window, pacing back and forth as he talked. The conversation seemed intense, lots of gesturing. At one point he even raised his voice, though I couldn't hear what he was saying. While he was gone, I decided to use the bathroom. As I walked past the window, I could hear fragments of his conversation. Told you I'd have it by tonight. She's perfect, exactly what she described. No, she has no idea. I stopped walking. Something about the way he said, she's perfect, made my skin crawl. He was looking right at the window, right at me, as he said it. Our eyes met through the glass. Daniel immediately ended his call and came back inside. Everything okay at work? I asked, trying to sound casual. All sorted. But something in his demeanour had changed. He seemed more focused on me now. His questions became more personal. Did I live alone? What was my schedule like? Did I have any family in town? I started feeling uncomfortable, and I just said I was getting tired. Daniel immediately offered to drive me home, but I told him I'd get an Uber. Don't be silly. I brought you here. I should take you home. I insisted on the Uber, but Daniel kept pushing. Finally, I excused myself to the bathroom and called an Uber from there. I texted my friend Sarah, the one who introduced us, and told her something fell off, and to call me in 20 minutes if she didn't hear from me. When I came back to the table, Daniel was holding my purse. You left this, he said, handing it to me. You didn't want to lose anything important. But I hadn't left it. I'd taken it to the bathroom with me. I was sure of it. And when I checked inside, my driver's license was in a different spot than where I normally keep it. My ride's here, I lied. I should go. Daniel walked me outside. There was no Uber, of course, because I cancelled it after seeing one for my purse. I stood on the sidewalk, pretending to look for my driver, pulling out my phone to call another one. You know, Daniel said, standing very close to me now, I have something in my car that you'll find very interesting. Something that belongs to you. What do you mean? I asked. He smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile, like I'd seen at dinner. Why don't you come and see? Every instinct I had was screaming no. That's okay. My ride will be here in any second. Lisa, I really think you should see what I have. He started walking towards his car, expecting me to follow. When I didn't move, he turned back. It's a photo from your apartment, taken through your bedroom window. I felt like I was going to be sick. What are you talking about? You have very thin curtains, Daniel continued, and you don't always remember to close them all the way. Blue pajamas with little cats on them, very cute. I started backing away from him, pulling out my phone to call 911, but Daniel just smiled. Oh, and Lisa? I know you don't actually have an Uber coming. I can see your phone screen from here. No active rides. That's when I ran. I sprinted down the street towards the main road, where there would be more people, more traffic. I could hear Daniel behind me, but he wasn't running, just walking at a normal pace, like he knew something I didn't. I made it to a 24-hour diner and burst through the front door, probably looking completely insane. The staff could see I was upset and let me call the police from there. When the cops arrived, we drove back to look for Daniel, but he was gone. His car was gone too. They took my statement, but without any physical evidence or witnesses, there really wasn't much they could do. The terrifying part came the next day. I got home from work to find a manila envelope tucked under my apartment door. Inside were the photos, dozens of them. Pictures of me taken through my windows, pictures of me walking to my car, pictures of me at the grocery store, at the gym and at work. Some of these photos were dated. The oldest one's from 3 weeks ago, a full week before we'd even met at that party. Daniel hadn't asked me out an impulse. He'd been watching me, studying me, and planning this for weeks. The mutual friend who introduced us, when I called her, she said she never heard of anyone named Daniel. I moved apartment months later, got a restraining order, even though it's hard to restrain someone whose real name you don't even know. Sometimes I still catch myself looking over my shoulder and checking my windows twice before I close the curtains. Because somewhere out there, Daniel is probably watching someone else, collecting photos, and planning his perfect next first date.